Recap of the previous episode. We're second place. Yippee. It's funny that I lost to Rangers quite a lot, but still ended up second. Market Degrassa ended up having a very good season, and we have a squad to get ready for next season, which is going to have the Champions League. Finance is looking pretty dead, but I can only have my hopes up. Board is still giving me B-. Saddest news of all, Cristaldo ended up leaving Aberdeen. He had enough of us. He wasn't getting enough gain, and he decided to sign with Arsenal. Not that Arsenal, but Arsenal Football Club de Saranda. We also lost Anthony Stewart, who decided to go out of contract, but we didn't decide to renew it. But we did renew Connor Barron. On the positive side, we did end up in the top 200 of Europe, because we actually risen 12 places because of our brilliant performance. This season job is this. 1. Get into Champions League group stage to make hella dollar cash. 2. Second place again, but close the game on points to Celtic. 3. Bring in more players to form the wine squad. 4. Once gotten hella dollar, invest into Scottish youngsters, because we actually really need a lot of money. We did have quite a lot of players coming in. First up, we had Daniel Maldini coming in from AC Milan. Iona Toradu coming in free from Inter Milan. Ethan Mpadu was coming in free from Chelsea. Yanis Hadji was coming in from Rangers for free. So we brought in some heavy hits, and when you're playing in the Champions League, you need some big guns. That being said, we did end up getting backups, and these backups ended up being the ones that are going to be helping for depth purposes. Speaking of the Champions League, our first draw came to being, and it was going to be exciting. I'm going to see how it goes, and here, you know what? Here's my reaction to when we had our first draw. Oh no! All things you can give me is FC Port. Oh my god. Dinya, Costa. Oh, Joko Costa's actually lead. Okay, Galeno, Cruzet, Beto. This is gonna be an interesting game. Yes, we got on FC Porto, another Portugal dream to try and knock me out. Don't worry, I will still get flashback from the Lisbon game. Absolutely, I cannot believe I ended up getting Porto. Honest to God, I was fuming. But I was hoping for a weaker side to go up against, because but then again, I am unseeded, so I cannot complain. Before the Porto match came to being, we did have another draw, meaning if I beat Porto, we get to see who else we're up against, and the next team we'll be up against would either be Club Bruges or Feyenoord. Big massive which just makes it more it just makes it more frustrating, because I'm gonna go from one big game to another big game, so we better do well. We better bring some more big guns. That being said, we decided to proceed towards the Hearts game, because that was our first game, and I was a little bit worried because we were up against Ollie McBurney, who was playing for Hearts, and this is gonna be our first SPL game. We weren't playing against Celtic, which was kind of weird for starters, but I feel sorry for them, because we ended up scoring the winner in injury time, and I feel really bad that we kind of robbed them for it. Anyway, with that out the side, we had the Porto game, and it was a homegrown game, and now Porto have a lot of big names, so a prayer was needed to be said. Surprising, the prayer was answered, and we managed to win against them 2-1. Miovski with the opening, and then what made it more possible was what made it even more possible is the fact that Porto had a sending off, which actually made it really good. They did, however, manage to get a penalty, which allowed them to score a goal. But then we did answer back. Maldini went and said, yo, look at this, I'm about to score a goal, and he did. Already a promising start. Came towards the second leg. First up, we started really good. Marco de Grazia scoring in the second half, but what came next was my biggest nightmare. Beto scores instantly to make it 1-1. Then Vitina scored it to make it 2-1. Then on top of that, to make it the most saddest icing of all time, they ended up getting a penalty in the last 10 minutes, which Galeno did make it 3-1. I was very sad, and our Champions League reign came to an end. I just could not believe it. Honestly, I could not believe it. It's just absolutely horrible. But we still have a shot because we end up in the Europa anyway. We move on to the Celtic game, and that was honestly a close one because we managed to win it in injury time. Take that, Celtic. Though they did have a lot of new players, which it's going to be a little bit disappointing when we get to go against them next time. So sadly, I did go on holiday for a few days in the game, and I didn't realize there was a Europa fixture coming soon. So Europa has a new format, and that is where you have to go up against 8 different teams, and whatever points you have in the end will determine whether you get to go through. The top 8 will get to go through automatically to the second round, while the others will, I think, a bunch of these will go into the first knockout round to go up against each other. Of course, me being very confusing, I saw the teams and honestly, it was very gutting. So first up, we are going up against a Cyprus team, Apollo Limassol. Then we're going up against Real Betis. Then we're going to go up against Sporting Lisbon. Fuck you. Then we're going up against Ferencvaros. Then Randers FC. Then PAOK. And then Leicester. Which was interesting. And lastly, LASK. Interesting format because I didn't realize this was going to happen, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes, how it would affect, but we shall find out later on. We did end up hitting 100 games of management, and which makes me a bit proud and know the fact that I never got sacked. However, it did come into us going up against Hibs. Now obviously Hibs didn't lose a game and we haven't lost games, so we're both fighting for first place right there, so it's going to be interesting to see how we ended up being. Though that being said, we did end up beating them 3-1, and this situation we ended up getting first place, which you know what, honestly, it was a good feeling. It was a really good feeling, and all my days I thought this could be it, this could be our season. I could be reaching expectations, until sadly we ended up being threatened by Rangers because they actually beat us 1-0, and then we did get stinged a bit, and eventually we did end up going down to second. That being said, if we're fast forwarding towards January, we did end up going through a rough situation, a rough patch, and we just started struggling a little bit, which wasn't good because we were having a lot of games, and it was just not good because we did end up 5th place in January, which to me was a little bit disappointing. St. Mirren was on form. We lost a lot of points, and it was making it more difficult to catch up with Rangers, and it's just I don't know what to say. Defense. That's it. Defense. Since it was January, we had to add more players. We had to actually have more depth because we did have a lot of injuries through the first half. The biggest concern was in January. Actually, we lost Bradley Cross and Iona Radu, but that's because we weren't playing them as much. And Radu actually never took cover off his throne. Or Nwosu was actually the youngster we had, the Nigerian youngster, was doing really well, and he couldn't beat them. He was just like, that's it, I'm out. We brought in a backup for Ajapong and Jalil Patel and Royal Walters, an Arsenal loanee, to help out in the defense because we didn't want to spend too much money. Oh, we didn't talk about the Europa. So obviously we're going to go back to the Europa because by this time in January, we ended up playing all the 8 games. It was interesting. I was not expecting it, and we played all the 8 games, and I would have to say we ended up being 9th place, which was a little bit outside of the 8 qualified spots, which was a bit sad. I think we drew too many games, but we could have done quite well. All in all, we actually did really good game-wise. I would say we did really well with all the games that we did. So, just one win would have actually though before all this was happening, there was a last minute situation in transfer. Let's say it did get spicy, and I got into a very bad position because I ended up losing some players that I wasn't expecting to lose. I ended up selling Nwosu, our goalkeeper, Nigerian goalkeeper. He ended up going to Chelsea for 11 million, which was very sad for me to do, but I couldn't change his mind at all, and I didn't want to reject it because it is 11 million. And, you know, it's just in case of that situation, I try not to, you know, I want to allow the players to go, you know. If it can be helped, it can be helped. Though that being said, we did end up bringing in Ross Ferguson from Motherwell, a Scottish youngster, and another big upset was we ended up losing Sofanat Mwenta, our striker partnership of De Grassa, to Man City of all teams. I forgot there was a clause on the player, and they ended up paying for the clause, which probably in my perspective was really bad. Bad contract signing, meaning it was the end of the era. This was meaning that it was the end of the era of the Grass and Wenta partnership. But maybe in the future I might try and buy him back so I can maybe continue it. So who do I bring in now? I mean, in this situation, I ended up deciding to entrust into Alfie Mavic. We did end up getting in 2 youngsters. If I'm going to trust in Alfie Mavic, I did have to bring in 2 youngsters to help out in attacking. So we brought in Keon Edwards on loan from Arsenal, and Curtis Laughlin was bought from Queen's Park, a Scottish youngster. We also got in Dylan Levitt, which was a big regret due to hefty contract, but we continue. The reason we brought in Dylan Levitt because he went to Inter Milan, he didn't get any games there. I think he ended up being a surplus and he was on transfer, and we ended up trying to sign him, but he was a big contract. Now let's go back to Europa. So we ended up getting to the last 16. Sadly, losing to Wolfsburg 3-0 on aggregate was a little bit disappointing. It was a rough situation. We were going to get big teams to go up against. But I would say it was a huge improvement from last year because we didn't do that well last year. So I say it was good. It did make me wonder if I still had Mwenta, we might have done better, or Nwosu, but it's hard to say. We'll have to see. But we're going to backtrack a little bit here. So the Premier Sports Cup, we ended up going to the final. We lost there 1-0. Finally, we beat Rangers in the semi-final, which I thought would have meant that we have a higher probability to win the cup this time, but sadly not. In the Scottish Cup, we made it also to the final up against Celtic again, and we sadly lost that 1-0 also. I'm seeing a running thing going on here where I'm going to lose 1-0 to Celtic every time. The Scottish League, however, ended up being a bit of a letdown. So, like I said, we were in 5th place in January. We ended up 3rd place in the end of the season, and it's not. I would say it is a bit my fault because the fact that some of our runs didn't end up going well. It's not bad in another sense because it is up against Celtic and Rangers and the league, and they would have more resources, more money and stuff. It's just a bit more frustrating. But the team is building up to be a better team, I would say, at the very least. We just need to have more depth and consistency than anything else, and I think we'd be solid. But overall, it is not a bad performance this year. We could have done much more better, and I'm pretty sure we could have done so much better. But the finance do be looking promising. Maybe season 4 could be the year. Actually, maybe season 4 could be where I might win titles, but we'll find out. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you later. See you. Bye bye.